Buck August here, registered dietitian with Inlow Medical Center, and today we're going to talk about fiber, hydration, and go over label reading a little bit. So dietary fiber is really important to our health in general. It's good for our gut health. It can actually help to lower cholesterol, help to keep us regular. It does a lot of good things for our body. Another interesting thing about fiber is that most of the foods that are high in fiber are the foods that we would naturally consider to be healthy and good for us. So if we're choosing a lot of good, wholesome, real foods, we're also going to be taking in more fiber. The reason why we talk about hydration as well is because our body needs water to deal with fiber in our diet, especially if you're starting to increase your fiber intake. You want to increase your fluid intake as well. So we'll talk about some goals for fluid intake. So what is fiber? It's kind of what holds plants together. So if you think about a whole grain, the outside is where all the bran is, kind of the brown part on the outside of a kernel of wheat. That's where most of the fiber is. Inside the grain, there's a germ where there's some vitamins and minerals, and then there's a white starchy part in the center, and that's basically just starch or carbs. So again, the fiber is kind of what holds it together. Or if you think about an orange, what's holding together all the segments, that's all fiber. That's a big part of the reason why we like to eat whole fruits and vegetables versus drinking juice, because when we eat the whole orange, we get all that fiber. It takes our body a while to kind of digest and break down the orange. Blood sugar goes up more gradually. Whereas if you drink a glass of juice, you're going to digest that sugar lickety-split. And for somebody, especially with diabetes, it can cause the blood sugar to really go up rapidly. So good sources of fiber, whole grains, beans are outstanding, nuts and seeds, fruits and vegetables. It's mainly where we're going to find it. So when it comes to fiber, there's two main types. There's what they call insoluble fiber and what they call soluble fiber. So the insoluble fiber, it's almost like bark. It's like the bran, the really hard, roughage parts of fiber. So again, the outside of a kernel of wheat, that's insoluble fiber mostly. Carrots, broccoli, lots of insoluble fiber, that real kind of coarse, fibrous parts of the plant. Insoluble fiber is great for keeping us regular, helps with preventing constipation. Again, lots of different foods have a lot of insoluble fiber. Now, soluble fiber on the flip side is a little different. If you take insoluble fiber like bran, you put it in water, it's just going to kind of sit there. Soluble fiber on the flip side, when it gets into water, it actually absorbs the water and kind of bulks up. So the classic example of this is oatmeal. That's what gives oatmeal some of its kind of thick consistency, is the soluble fiber in there that's absorbing all that fluid. So in our body, that kind of forms this gel as we're digesting the foods that are high in soluble fiber. And that does a few things. Helps to slow down digestion, so it helps to keep you full longer. That soluble fiber actually will stick to some of the cholesterol in our diet and help our body to get rid of some of that cholesterol. So soluble fiber helps to lower cholesterol. That's why Cheerios had all those advertisements about being heart healthy, because they have soluble fiber and they're going to help to lower cholesterol. So where do we find soluble fiber other than oats? It's in a lot of different places: beans, lentils, barley, apples, oranges, sweet potatoes. So it's all over the place. And really, pretty much any food that has a significant amount of fiber is going to have some insoluble and some soluble. Some just happen to have more of one or the other. So fiber, we talked about, it helps to keep us regular, can help to lower cholesterol, can help to keep you full. For somebody with diabetes, it can help their blood sugar to go up more gradually. Higher fiber diets have also been linked to lower rates of cancer, certain types of cancer. So fiber has a lot of great benefits, and it's important to include a lot of foods that have fiber. So how much do you need? The goal for fiber is somewhere between 25 and 35 grams a day. So you can get that again, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, nuts and seeds. Some things have a ton of fiber. So like beans, a serving of beans may have 6, 7, 8 grams of fiber in one serving. So that could be like a third or a quarter to a third of your daily value just in one serving of beans. Things like berries have a lot of fiber too. Nuts are pretty good, nuts and seeds, and again, all the other fruits and vegetables. If you are going to increase your fiber, we recommend you do it gradually, because suddenly increasing your fiber intake can sometimes cause some digestive issues as your body's getting used to dealing with all that extra fiber. Some tips for choosing higher fiber foods when it comes to bread. look for a bread that says 100% whole wheat or 100% whole grain, which means that they're using only whole grains to make the bread. If you buy a bread that just says wheat on it, it might use a little bit of whole wheat flour, but it may still use a lot of white, or what they call enriched wheat flour, so it may not have very much fiber. There are a few breads on the market too where they've actually increased the fiber. So there's a brand out there that has a double fiber bread, and so it'll have like 4, 6, maybe 8 grams of fiber in a serving, which is a whole lot for bread. When it comes to pasta, you can choose a whole wheat pasta that's going to have more fiber. When it comes to fruits and vegetables, if it's one that you can eat it with the skin, like an apple, you're going to get a lot more fiber from eating the skin, whereas you'll lose some if you peel it. Again, beans, nuts, peas, even popcorn is a decent source of fiber. So if we're trying to get that, 25 to 35 grams of fiber a day, how would that add up? Here's an example. So at breakfast, if we had a cup of cooked oatmeal with a 1/4 cup of almonds, those each have 4 grams of fiber, so that's 8. So that's a good start to the day. At lunch, let's say we had a turkey sandwich, maybe we choose a higher fiber bread, so we're going to get somewhere between 4 and 8 grams of fiber from those 2 pieces of bread. Have a pear, that's another 4 grams of fiber. For dinner, let's say we had a cup of whole wheat pasta, another 6 grams of fiber. Then maybe a spinach salad with a cup of spinach leaves and 1/3 of a cup of beans, another 5 grams of fiber. And then maybe we had an afternoon snack or an evening snack with an apple and a string cheese, so that's another 4 grams of fiber. So with that, we're up to 31 to 35 grams of fiber. So it's very doable if you're choosing those higher fiber foods. And like we said before, when you increase your fiber, make sure you increase your fluids. Water does a whole lot for our body. 50 to 60% of our body is actually made of water, which kind of blows your mind when you think about it, or at least it does to mine. So our body needs water, needs to stay hydrated to function properly. We get some fluid from foods that we eat, so things like fruits and vegetables have some fluid in there, but most of it comes from what we drink. So how much do you need? I always say shoot somewhere between 64 ounces, which is 8 cups or 8 8-ounce glasses of water. If you do those water bottles, those are normally about 16.9 ounces. So it's 4 of those kind of regular sized water bottles. Or some people have a 32-ounce reusable water bottle that they use, so a couple of those. So somewhere between 64 ounces to half your weight in ounces. So let's say I weigh 180. I'm going to take half of that as 90. So I'm going to shoot for somewhere between 64 and 90 ounces of water, of fluids a day. Other things do count for fluid. So if you drink some tea or you drink some coffee, those do have water in them. Those do count for fluid. Things with caffeine are a bit of a diuretic. So sometimes people will say that doesn't count towards your fluid intake, but really it does, especially if you drink it on a daily basis, because your body has kind of gotten used to that caffeine. I still encourage you to drink plenty of water or, caffeine-free fluids. These days, a lot of people also are drinking those sparkling waters like LaCroix or Crystal Geyser, different brands, where they just have a little bit of flavoring, but they haven't added any sugar or anything. Definitely recommend watching out for sugary drinks like soda, lemonade, sweet tea. Generally speaking, for overall health and well-being, it's good to choose drinks that are low in sugar. How do you know if you're getting enough water? Well, if you look at the color of your urine, if it's on the clear side to like maybe lemonade, you're probably doing pretty well. If it looks like apple juice or motor oil, you're probably not drinking enough fluids. One thing to keep in mind though is that if you took a vitamin, especially like vitamin C or B vitamins recently, that can change the color of your urine for a few hours. So you might want to ignore that and maybe look, at a different time of the day when you hadn't just taken your vitamins. So how can we increase our fluid intake? Keep a bottle of water with you, whether it's a plastic bottle or reusable bottle. Keep that on hand. Wherever you sit down at home, maybe keep some water right there. Keep some in the car. Just keep it around so that you think about it more often. Sometimes we just don't drink very much because we don't even think about it, kind of out of sight, out of mind. So that can help. You can also add a little bit of flavor to your water with something like a little bit of lemon or lime. Cut up some fruit, put it in a pitcher, fill it with water, put that in the fridge, and then for the day you can drink that, and that'll give it kind of an infused fruit flavor, which can be really nice. So when it comes to reading labels, We can find a lot of information on there. They recently just changed the food label actually, and they've added some new things, taken some things away. So if you look at the very top of the label, it's going to say how many calories are in the food, and that has become much more bold on the new food label. It'll also say what the serving size is, and they've tried to make those a little bit more realistic. So before, a pint of Ben & Jerry's said it was 4 servings. There was only a half cup per serving. Now it says there's 3 servings, so serving size is 2/3 of a cup. Still not exactly realistic, but a little bit closer. So always pay attention to the serving size, because sometimes you'll look at something and you'll think, well, I'm going to eat this whole thing. This is a serving. But in reality, it's 2, 3, 4 servings in that container. If you go down, you'll see the total fat, and you'll see the saturated fat. So 1 gram of saturated fat is about 5% of our daily value. So they're saying keep the saturated fat to about 20 grams or less in a day. Show the trans fat. Most foods don't have trans fat anymore. They're not really supposed to use it anymore, so you don't have to worry about that quite as much. You see the cholesterol, so you can watch your cholesterol intake. And you'll see the carbohydrates, and then we've just been talking about fiber. So there it'll say the grams of fiber. So this has 4 grams. It's about 15 or 14% of your daily value. It'll also say the sugars, and now food labels say the added sugars, which is really interesting. So a great example of this would be something like Raisin Bran. If you look at a box of Raisin Bran, you'll see the total sugars, but that includes the sugar that comes from the raisins. And then below that, you'll see the added sugars. So that's the sugar they added to it on top of what was in the raisins, which is a really significant amount. Down at the bottom, there's the protein. And then they've actually changed the vitamins and minerals that are required to be on the label. So now it's vitamin D, calcium, iron, and potassium. So they found that those are more important for most people to be looking at. So food labels can be super helpful, great for comparing different products. There's a lot of information on there, but you can get a lot of good information by checking out the label.